All right, guys. So once again, I'm just going to do a little introduction to cellular respiration, kind of break it down. This is the last few slides of our notes. And we're going to add a little bit of extra stage in here, but we'll kind of go through it. The first stage that we'll all talk about, everything does, is glycolysis, and that happens in the cytoplasm. These two happen in the mitochondria, and therefore are not done by all organisms, only things that have mitochondria, but you should kind of know what those things are. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started and kind of go through this. I'm going to use a lot of diagrams to hopefully explain this. I also, in class next time, do some videos as well. Please make sure you take any notes over this video and bring them to class on Friday. So here we have a diagram that kind of shows glycolysis happening. Once again, it is happening in the cytoplasm of all organisms. And what it does is it takes, in a series of reactions, glucose, and that's what those little arrows represent here, the series of reactions, and it creates a pyruvate, which is going to eventually be turned into pyruvic acid. And in the process of that, it does make some ATP, and it does it through a process of substrate level phosphorylation, and we'll talk about that. This is happening in the cytoplasm, or the cytosol. Once we have this pyruvate, it will have three possible pathways to go. In aerobic respiration, it's going to be converted to pyruvic acid and enter into the mitochondria. Lactic acid fermentation is converted to lactic acid. Alcohol fermentation is converted into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So as I said, the pyruvate will go through a process of here, oxidation of pyruvic acid. It'll then feed into the citric acid cycle. The citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, happens inside the mitochondria, and doing substrate level phosphorylation, it does make some ATP. Both these two will need to know how much ATP is produced in each one of those, and we'll go over those in more detail. Then after that, what we do is that we create these NADHs and FADHs, which are electron carriers, similar to what we talked about in photosynthesis, and they get fed into this process here, which is the oxidation phosphorylation, also known as the electron transport chain. And in doing so, we make a lot more ATP through a little bit different process. So all of these things go together. The most efficient ways go through glycolysis, citric acid cycle feeds into this, and then these things are going to hold the electrons and be really converted into a lot of ATP here. That's our big energy ATP source. In your notes before the semester or before this unit ends, you better be able to tell me how much ATP is produced in all levels, how much NADPH and how much FADH is produced through the citric acid cycle. These are electron carriers, just as NADPH was, and they're going to carry them into the last stage here, and that's where they're going to be converted into ATP. ATP, as we've mentioned, is going to be that energy source. It's like cash for the cell, and as we break down ATP into NADPH and PI, it releases energy that allows the organelles and parts of the cell to do work. Cellular respiration as a whole is an exergonic process by which energy is going to be made available to do work. And once again, it does this through a process of releasing the energy in glucose molecules. It can do it with other molecules other than glucose, but that's the easiest one for us to kind of follow and understand. So that's going to be our basic model for this unit. ATP is the cash of the cell, and it's therefore the main energy source. When we have oxygen present, we call it aerobic respiration. And once again, aerobic respiration does have a lot of reactions. We're not going to necessarily learn all of them. They must happen in a particular sequence and order, and they happen in different locations. It does require oxygen, and the oxygen is used to help break down the glucose molecule in that exergonic process. Down below, I kind of have a summary of the equation. I think it's important to kind of maybe pause this right now and go ahead and write down that formula. As you can see, we have the glucose molecule here. It's combined with oxygen, the ADP and the PI, a lot of enzymes, and in that process we're going to get carbon dioxide and water, These two things are, end products have less potential energy than the reactant glucose, and then that 38 ATP. That is a total gain of ATP. It does not include how much it does cost us a little bit here, which we'll talk about. It's going to cost us 2 ATP in the process. So the total amount of ATPs produced during aerobic respiration is 38 ATP, but once again, that is the gross amount. It does cost us 2 right off the start to get it going, therefore a net gain of 36 ATP. As I said, the earlier steps take 2, therefore the net ATP used is 36 ATP. That 36 ATP accounts for approximately 39% of the energy available in a glucose molecule. There's still some energy that's gone. What happened to it? Well, when we reduce glucose, some of the energy is going to be lost in the form of heat. Additionally, some of the energy will still be remaining in the carbon dioxide and water that's left over at the end of cellular respiration. So that's where the other 61% of the energy that's found, either in the water and the carbon dioxide, or in heat, or other unusable energy that's been released. And warm-blooded animals, we actually use this to help warm our bodies when we consume food. As we said, what it does is glucose is like a check, ATP is like the cash, and by doing this process, we're converting that in a nice, organized, and controlled manner to generate ATP versus kind of like the Hindenburg and just blowing it up. So it's a nice, slow, steady process to make ATP. This is kind of the process that occurs going from ATP to ADP. We're going to give off energy. Those energies are able to do all these actions. When we go from ADP to ATP, we require energy, and we get that energy from one of two ways. You can do it through the oxidation of fuel molecules such as glucose, even amino acids and things like that, or through a process of photosynthesis. Both of those things will actually make ATP. Then we convert it again, giving off energy, do it again, getting energy in, and it's just this cycle that we have. Same thing here, just explains the energonic and exergonic reactions. 2 good little diagrams to kind of explain it. Hopefully you might want to write that down if you'd like, but explains which reaction is energonic, which one's exergonic, which one requires energy, which one gives off energy. All right, so when we look at aerobic respiration, it involves these kind of 4 stages. Glycolysis happens in every living thing. These 3 are going to be ones that are unique to aerobic respiration, and we'll talk about them as well. The other thing that's important, understand what's needed, where does it occur, and what's produced in each one of these. We'll talk about that in class. Also want to know what our end game is. That's 36 net ATP. The reason we break down glucose and ATP is ATP is the convenient way to power any of the cells reactions that we need. So in class on Friday, we're going to do a little short lab, and we're going to go maybe watch a couple videos over cellular respiration. So make sure you have these notes either printed off or handwritten and brought into class for an easy 5 out of 5 homework assignment. That's all I got. See you guys in class.